thank you everybody for your patience with that. We are going to get started then today. I'm Carolyn Growie. I'm our Executive Director of the Center for Independent Living in Northwest Florida. We're so happy to have everybody join us today. I'm going to be transitioning to another one of our team members to run the facilitation of the event. As well, we will have our guest speakers on shortly there. And if people have questions or chats that they'd like to put in, we would like to try to have everything go to one place. If you could please ask any of your questions in the question and answer box, that would be fantastic. And again, we're happy to have all of you here. This video will be recorded, and then what will happen is we will post this for future use on our website. We appreciate everybody joining us today, and we appreciate being able to have this, be able to move forward. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Cherie Hoffman, who is our FAST coordinator, and she's also been with our center on and off for close to 18 years, and she's been involved with other things in the community as well. So with that, Cherie Hoffman, I'm going to let you introduce yourself further, and we'll go ahead with the webinar. Thank you.
Carolyn. Well, good morning, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you through the CIL Northwest Florida in partnership with the Florida Spinal Cord Injury Resource Center out of Tampa, Florida. Our presenters today will be Justin Stark and Anthony Rodano. I'd like to discuss a little bit more about our center before we let our presenters speak. Next slide, please. The CIL of Northwest Florida promotes, educates, facilitates, assists, and advocates with and on behalf of people with disabilities in partnership with their communities to achieve their goals for independence. The CIL of Northwest Florida serves Santa Rosa, Escambia, Okaloosa, and Walton counties. They have 5 core services: individual and systems advocacy, information and referral, independent living skills, transition services, training, peer counseling, and mentoring. In addition, CIL has other programs and activities. As Carolyn mentioned, we have the Assistive Technology Program through Florida's Assistive Technology Program, FAST Inc. We also have Amplified Telephone Program through the Florida Telecommunications Relay, as well as a durable medical equipment loans, recreational activities, support groups, and community education and training. The CIL of Northwest Florida is also a regional consultant for all 5 titles of the Americans with Disabilities Act, known as the ADA. Next slide. This presentation is presented today as September. It was designated National Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month by the U.S. Senate in an effort to raise awareness about SCI, the need for better treatments, and education on prevention. Next slide. At this time, I'm going to welcome our speakers from the Florida Spinal Cord Injury Resource Center. Established in January 1994, they serve as the statewide clearinghouse of the SCI resource information for persons who have survived SCI, their families and friends, healthcare professionals, support groups, the media, and the general public. At this time, I'd like to say welcome to Anthony and Justin.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm going to see if we can stop sharing my screen. There we go. Great. Thank you.
Can everybody see this?
Yep. It's all good.
Okay. Well, my name is Justin Stark. I'm the director of the Florida Spinal Cord Injury Resource Center, and my coworker on the line Also doing this presentation is Anthony Rodano. He runs the Peer Mentor program and is an information specialist. So we're going to talk about a couple things today. We appreciate you guys inviting us and tell you a little bit about what we do, us as individuals, and then if you have any questions at the end as far as spinal cord injury goes, or personal about for us, we're happy to answer them. So as far as kind of what we do, we're funded under the Department of Health Brain and Spinal Cord Injury Program. And what the Brain and Spinal Cord Program is basically a trust fund and a coordination of care and a payer of last resort for those injured traumatically with a brain and spinal cord injury. So anybody that gets injured in a car accident, fall, sports injury, violent acquired crime, injury, they get provided a case manager, and they look to see what gaps there are in services from what an individual's insurance and things may cover versus what would it take to get them back into the community. So, some of the things that they can provide besides case management, some therapies, assistive technology, some minor home modifications, ramps, widening doorways, psychology services. There's a host of things. The ultimate goal is to try to get the individual back into the community safely in their home and reintegrated into the community. Where we fit in is we're the information education component of the program. So we provide different resources. We help can help somebody find grants. We can help them with educational materials, things education on bladder management, skincare, sexuality. We can advise them to support groups. You name it. Anything that can try to help somebody with a spinal cord injury regain as normal life as possible. And we're just there to try to help them get to achieve that goal. And a lot of times it kind of transitions. What a person needs when they're first injured versus what they need 20 years later could be very different, but nonetheless just as important. As a person ages with an injury, their needs vary. Things that worked well in their 20s may not work as well in their 40s. No different than anybody else in life. And so I'm a spinal cord injury myself, as is Anthony. So we live the life as well as try to advise people on how to make theirs as best as possible. I'll go through the website a little bit. This is kind of our main tool. If you come to the website, you see kind of on the front page, we have some featured items, recent news stories. We are always updating this. Some things I would like to specifically point out, the A to Z resource guide. This is pretty unique to our site. If you can see, there's millions of different topics available. And depending on what you're looking for, if you need, information on skincare, you go there and you can quickly find, different links online, fact sheets. We have some in Spanish, as you can see here. And this kind of, can link you all over the world as far as to resources. If you're looking for support groups, we also keep an updated list of that. This is something that, a lot of people are in need of, especially now with COVID. It's a unique situation where a lot of people are isolated. Some of these groups have gone to Zoom and different kind of virtual meetings. We have some of those updated. We didn't post those online because a lot of people don't want the link out there because they were getting hacked and there were different Zoom bombs and things like that. So, they've kept that private, but all the support group leaders are listed, and you're free to contact them and ask them kind of where their group is.
And we have those at the end that we'll be able to post for the two that are in our region as well. So we'll do that at the end of the uh, presentation from you.
Great. As far as spinal cord injury, you know, it's obviously Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, so I'll go over just a little bit as far as the education of it. Obviously, spinal cord injury, it's the one injury and the one kind of condition that scientists still have not totally figured out. What causes, you know, the damage to a spinal cord injury isn't necessarily the initial injury on site, where you would think like a cut to your arm would cause obvious bleeding. Most of the damage from a spinal cord injury is done because of the body trying to protect the area, which is the swelling afterwards. You know, damage is done to the cord, you know, swelling starts to occur, and obviously there's not a lot of space there. So what happens is the cord becomes compressed, blood flow gets cut off, scar tissue begins to develop, and that's where a lot of the signals get, you know, prohibited from going through as normal. So, you know, a lot of the research and things that are being worked on are trying to A, prevent that swelling from occurring, and B, trying to figure out ways to kind of jump over that area of damage. And, you know, there's some different things out there. You know, in Louisville, Kentucky is working on like a spinal stimulation that would have kind of like a microchip that would kind of jump over the area. So there's some different things out there, but that's kind of where science is heading right now. Complete versus incomplete. 20 years ago, that was really not a big issue. If you had a person that was broken their neck, you had a pretty good idea of what their function was going to be like. As you know, advancements and knowledge of the injuries became more prevalent, you know, everybody knows now if somebody, you know, injures their neck, not to move them. And there's different treatments. There's steroids. There's cooling, hypothermic treatment that kind of can bring the body temperature down. There's different techniques out there to try to keep the swelling. And what's happening is people, you know, essentially are not getting as much scar tissue at the site of injury. And so therefore, there are some signals getting through. And that's the difference between complete and incomplete, essentially. Incomplete means there's some signals getting through the level of where the damage occurred. And that's why you see you know, athletes and different celebrities that have, you know, maybe suffered a spinal cord injury and they're back walking a year later, 2 years later. It's because their injury is incomplete. But traditionally, you know, just kind of looking at the spine, if it's a cervical injury, all four limbs are usually affected. You know, the higher the level of on the neck that's injured, obviously the more limited and less function that they're going to have, typically. When you're talking about the thoracic level, you're talking about the lower neck to mid back area. At that point, you're talking about what's, you know, commonly called paraplegia. Usually their arms are not as affected. They may have some trunk stability, things like that were issues. The lower you go, lumbar, and then sacral. Obviously, the further down you go, the more likely you are to have, you know, stability in your trunk, some leg movement. You know, most of these levels of injury do affect kind of bladder management, bowel management, as well as skin care. So, you know, those are kind of the hidden, you know, disabilities, kind of, you know, secondary, you know, to what you might see from a person that's just in a wheelchair. So just kind of keep that in mind when you see some of the spinal cord injury. Although visibly they may not be able to walk, that might not be the biggest, you know, issues and concerns for them, you know, living their life. And so I'll just kind of one last thing I'll go over before I'll turn it over to Anthony to talk a little bit about his peer mentoring program and kind of his story. Just a little bit as far as statistics go with an injury. You know, 78% of the cases are male. You know, and that's not a surprise considering guys do, you know, tend to do more stupid things. It's still automobile is number one, although falls are quickly catching up. And I believe the latest statistic for Florida is falls is just about even with vehicular injuries, and which is not surprising since this is a population where you can, you can work outside on your house all year round and things like that. So falls are going to be a little bit higher. As far as the types of injuries, obviously cervical, it's easier to break your neck than it is your back. So typically most of the injuries are that. This is kind of an interesting and an amazing statistic is the cost of a lifetime for somebody with a spinal cord injury. Obviously somebody that's going to be injured 50 years of their life, it's a huge cost, and you can kind of see some of the numbers for yourself on the screen. And so with that, I think I kind of covered all the basics, and I'll turn it over to Anthony and let him talk a little bit about his program and telling you about himself. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Justin. Hi, everyone. I don't know if we have any questions. I saw some in the Q&A, but I guess we'll address those at the end, like Sherry said. So Justin and I work for the Spinal Cord Resource Center. We've been doing it together for a long time, pretty much since, 2004 together, Justin. So him and I have been working to help get spinal cord injuries that are newly injured and throughout their development access the information, education to help throughout their community reintegration in life. Specifically, we have a program that I coordinate. I'm honored to coordinate it. And you guys do some similar to this, but we have a spinal cord injury peer mentored network throughout the entire state of Florida. And if I had to look at my list, I probably have about 120 to 150 individuals who have gone through about a 6-hour training, have been background checked, have lived life successfully post-injury, either employed, volunteering, in school. So we want our peer mentors to be good role models for that individual. We want in new injuries to be employed. So having a mentor that has all these things, a family who's been successful post-injury, and you introduce them to a newly injured individual who acquires an injury and really just has no, idea of the life ahead of him, her. It's a challenging, it's acquired injury. So nobody really has a file. I don't think anybody on here has a file of what they're going to do if they get a spinal cord injury. It doesn't happen that often to people. We have 20 million people in the state of Florida and about 600 traumatic spinal cord injuries every year. So from a numbers perspective, it's not a lot. But for those individuals that unfortunately, damage their spinal cord injury, it is a big thing in their lives. There's an adjustment process. There's education so that person can live successfully. You really have to know your body. And that's what we're trying to do by matching a newly injured individual with somebody who has been down the road they're traveling and can help act as a coach, a confidant, a cheerleader, a listener, somebody who's on their team with the occupational therapists and doctors and family members, so that person isn't totally alone and not have somebody who's been down the road they're traveling. So it's pretty simple on its surface. I match by age, sex, and functional level. So think of me as just a matchmaker. I get a referral into our peer mentor program for somebody in South Florida who's a T5 gunshot wound. I'm looking at my roster to find somebody in that area who is the same level of injury, same sex, same age, and trying to get that person to connect with the individual that has requested peer mentoring. Very, very simple on its surface. Our mentors are background checked. They go through a 6-hour training. Reliable transportation is a must because prior to COVID, that individual would be showing up maybe at the person's rehab center or outpatient rehab. They may demonstrate, you know, their vehicle hand controls or transfers or just anything that newly injured individual has as far as gaps in their spinal cord injury education and adjustment to their injury. Okay? That's all we're trying to do. It's very, very simple. And most of the time it is successful by allowing a peer mentor to kind of offer their expertise to the newly injured individual or their family to help with their community reintegration. Anybody have any questions on that? It's
So far, we don't have any questions in the question box at this
All right.
moment. I think that we're all getting a nice piece of education from you about the processes.
okay. So no worries if you guys know somebody, and honestly, it really helps me to actually recruit spinal cord injury peer mentors, individuals that are qualified